Join as we learn Chumash for the third Torah reading of Parshas Beshalach, Tuesday, Parshas Beshalach, chapter 14, verse 15. Yesterday we learned as Pharaoh was getting closer to the Jewish people. The Jewish people turned to Moshe and say, what do we do? Are there not enough graves in Egypt? They got panicked. Moshe tells them, the way you see Egypt today, you'll never see them again. Today Moshe turns to God to know further instructions how to proceed. Verse 15. And God says to Moshe, why are you crying out to me? Speak to the Jewish people of Yisro and let them journey forth. Verse 15, Rashi, from here we learn that Moshe was praying. So God tells him, this is not a time for you to take your time in davening. Yisrael while the Jewish people are in danger. Another explanation. Why are you screaming to me? Alaya Davar told, it's up to you. I made it your responsibility. Alaya Davar Toli, it's on my responsibility. You don't have to worry about it. Like it says, on my children and on what I do, I command. So all the Jewish people have to do is just travel. All that they should be doing is move on, travel on. They don't have to worry about the sea standing in front of them as any issue. It is worthy, they are worthy to have the sea split for them because of the faith that they and their forefathers had in God. Verse 16. Now you raise your staff. And then stretch it out over the sea and split it. And the Jewish people will then go into the midst of the sea in dry land. Verse 17, and I will make the Egyptians' heart hard. And they will come after you. And it will harden the heart of Pharaoh and all his army. In the riders of Beroshav and in the chariots and all the horsemen, that they will then follow you into the sea. Verse 18. And the Egyptians will know Kani Hashem, that I am God. And I'll be glorified through Pharaoh, with his riders, and with his chariots and with his horsemen. They will all come to see the greatness of God because of it. Verse 19, and the angel of God had been advancing, that was leading the Jewish people, that was going in front of the camp of the Jewish people, and instead of going in front of the camp, he went behind them. So too, the pillar of the cloud was moved from in front of the Jewish people and it went behind the Jewish people. Rashi, why did it go behind them? Lahavdil, to make a partition between the Egyptian camp and the Jewish camp, as well as the Egyptians were then shooting rocks and stones and arrows at the Jewish people, and these clouds would accept them. To accept the slingshots and the arrows, Shal Mitzrayim of the Egypt, the Chol Mokim, because in every place, Malach Hashem, when he talks about an angel, the Khan, over here he calls it Malach Elikim, he uses the name of Elikim. Shein Elikim b'chol Mokim Eladin, whenever the name Elikim is used, because it means discipline, of judgment. That teaches us that the Jewish people were in judgment at the time. That means it was a case against the Jews. Should they be saved or should they be destroyed like the Egyptians? Because they were the very fact that there were some Jews that were complaining and saying, are there not enough graves in Egypt? Those Jews were putting themselves in jeopardy. Maybe they should also drown like the Egyptians. When it got dark, the Hishlim Anan and the cloud went instead of the fire. The cloud did not leave like it used to do, that it would leave in the evening completely. What happened was that generally there was a pillar of fire was in the front, and then during the day was the cloud. This time the cloud by night went in the back and it made it pitch black for the Egyptians, and also accepted all those arrows and stones that they were throwing. Verse 20. Vayave, what did this cloud do? Vayave ben machane Mitzrayim ben machane Yisrael. And the cloud positioned itself between the Egyptian camp and the Jewish camp, the Israelites camp. And there was darkness because of it, because of the cloud. There was cloud and darkness. And for the Jews, it had the pillar of fire and it lit up the night for them. Neither camp came near each other throughout the night. Rashi, it's for example, a person's going in the road. And his son is walking in front of him. So robbers come, and try to attack him. Not so he takes him from before him, when the son and ports him behind him. Then a wolf comes from behind him to try to catch him, to try to attack his son. When his son so he puts him before him. So what happens now? In the end, now he has wolves in the front, behind, and thieves in the behind, thieves in front of him, and wolves behind him. And his son he carries him in his hand, and he fights them. So too, when the God says that he put the cloud in the front and in the back, as it says in Hosea, that God says, and I took Ephraim and I kept him in my arms when I was waging war against for you. It was dark for the Egyptians, and it gave light. However, the pillar of fire gave light for the Jewish people. It was going in front of them in the usual way, to go throughout the night, and the darkness that was on the side of the Egyptians. The two camps did not come close to one another. Verse 21, and Moshe then raised his hand over the sea. And God made the sea, and God drove this back the sea through the night with a powerful wind. With a powerful wind throughout the night. And it turned the sea into dry land. And the water split. Beruach Kodim, which was an eastern wind, which is Shahu Aza Shabaruches, which that is the strongest of the winds. Ruach, that's the wind that blows from the east. That God uses to punish the evil. Shnemer, as it says, Beruach Kodim avitzem, with the eastern wind I spread them out. So too we find in other places in Hosea, Yaveh Kodim Ruach Shem, that the eastern wind of God's Ruach HaKodim Shabarech Lev Yamim, the eastern wind that's in the heart of the seas, that Yecheskel talks about, as well as the Yeshaya says, Haga Baruche HaKodsha B'Yom Kodim, that God wants to bring punishment on the evil, so he uses the eastern wind. Vayibaku Amayim, and the water split. It doesn't say only the water of the sea. Kol Mayim Shaba'ilam, all the waters, everywhere a person had a bathtub, whatever it was, the water split in every sea, and that's why later on we find that Jethro says that he heard about the splitting of the sea. How did he hear about it? There was no news media, there was no television. He heard about it because he saw that his water split, and people spoke about it, and that's how the news went, that the Jewish people went through the splitting of the sea. Verse 22. And the Jewish people went into the midst of the sea, Bayabasha, on dry land. And the water formed a wall on the right side and on the left side. 23. And the Egyptians pursued the Jews. They came after them. All of Pharaoh's horses. The riders of Farashav and the chariots in the midst of the sea. Why is it a singular term? Did Pharaoh only have one horse? Did he only have one? It teaches us that all of them were just one. Everything that God destroyed, it was like if killing one horse. Verse 24. And it was during the watch of the night, during the third watch of the night. And God looked at the third watch of the night, which was already means the beginning of the morning. So that's why it says Haboiker, the morning. And God looked down upon the camp of the Egyptians, with a pillar of fire, va'anan, and with a cloud, va'yaham esmachin Mitzrayim, and he confused and he threw the camp of the Egyptians into confusion. Rashi, Bashmoiris HaBoker, what does it mean? Ba'ashmoiris HaBoker. So Rashi explains, as we translated, the thirds of the night. Shloisha Chalki Alayla. There are three parts of the night. Each one of them is called Ashmoiris, a watch. The one that's right before the morning is called Kaid Ashmoiris HaBoker, is called the watch of the morning. I say, why is it called Ashmoiris? Because the night is split up to the different watches according to the angels, that each one, each group comes to say a different song in front of God. Therefore, he calls it Ashmoiris, like shifts. Comes from the word mishmeres, that we also find mishmores, different shifts of angels. That's what Unclus translates Ashmoiris HaBoker matras, which means the shift of the morning. The word vayashke, Rashi says, means vayabet. He looked, he looked towards them, lashchisam, to destroy them, as the Targum translates, v'isteche. It also means to look closely, like the word states. The cloud would come down. It made the earth of the water like cement. And then the pillar of fire would make it really hot. And because it was so hot, it would, and therefore the horseshoes that were on the horses were then falling off, and that caused the horses to be able to be in a lot of pain because of it. One, they become in a lot of pain that their nails were coming off and their hooves were coming off. And because of that, it became very confusing. He mixed them all up. He took away their ability to control of what was going on. Anytime you find the word confusion, means there was a loud noise, and they were making all different kinds of noises. And therefore we find also later on in the book of Samuel, where he uses the same terminology about the Philistines, that there was a loud noise which confused them all of what was going on at the time. Verse 25. And we removed the wheels of their chariots. And therefore the Egyptians had a hard time, were trying to lead it heavily. They treated it heavily. And the Egyptians then said, let us flee from the Israelites, because God is fighting for them against Egypt. What does it mean he took off the wheels? Because of the fire that was there, the wheels burnt, and therefore the chariots were being dragged on the ground. And the people that were sitting inside the chariots were, they were so shaken by it, all their limbs were falling apart. And it was difficult. That means God led them in a way that was difficult, and hard for them. This same punishment was measure for measure, because the very fact that they were hard on the Jewish people, and so too it was difficult for them as well. Meaning bim Mitzrayim, against the Egyptians. Another one, bim Mitzrayim, in Egypt, be'eretz Mitzrayim. That the same way these people that were in the sea were being punished and they were being drowned into the sea, even those that were left in Egypt also were being punished and were being plagued upon them at the same time. This concludes the third Torah reading of Parshas Beshalach.